All right, welcome back to Legally Everywhere. Where we what? Shall we legally everywhere looking into everything? I thought it was so important. It was super important for us to talk about how pressure is applied, right? And I want to do this through the lens of the power and control wheel because I feel like it'll really start to make sense then. And y'all know I like to have structure, so I got a whole wheel for you. But before I jump into that piece, I thought it was important that I break down the power and control wheel because I also had a harm absorption chart that I put together. So before we can talk about harm, before we can even get to the point about harm, we have to talk about how power actually moves, right? Because y'all saw in the PowerPoints and everything I did about all the mechanics, all the movements, right? But this wheel that I'm about to show you is not about one country or one president, right? It's about a system. Y'all know how I feel about systems, right? We have to explore what is happening with them. How do they function? Under what authority do they get to do the things that they do, right? And if something happens that's out of line, who gonna come and regulate? What happens with regard to regulatory failures, right? Are you following the law, the regulations, the policies? What happens and who does it impact? How does it impact, right? So this is a power and control wheel, but instead of using it in like interpersonal dynamics, which is how we're most accustomed to seeing that discussion happen, I'm applying it to, I don't know, states, markets, and governance systems. So I really hope that you like this presentation of how I see it going, right? Because, ooh, what I say, I come with them receipts. I come with them receipts, baby. So listen, I'm going to break it down by each segment or like each little section. Each segment represents a tool of pressure when leverage happens without appearing to break the law outright. Because I feel like that's a big piece. Like, how they doing it without it seem like they actually broke the law, when in fact we be looking like, did you see that? Yes, we see it. So we want to talk about how does that actually get to happen in the first place. So hold on. You hold right there. Okay, so like let's apply this directly to Venezuela because Venezuela would be one of the clearest modern examples of how power, leverage, and governance failures play out in real time, right? If y'all been following me, what real time? This isn't about whether or not you like or dislike Venezuela's leadership or any of those kind of things. We're literally just talking about the power elements, leverage, governance, and how they kind of flipped what an asset, being oil, into like currency conversations and how all this moves and transitions, right? This is about how pressure was applied and who absorbed the cost, if you will, right? So in this, if you look up, you'll see I have this wonderful power control wheel set up for you. Oil isn't just a commodity, right? Oil is not a commodity. It's currency power, right? It's currency power, geopolitical leverage. It's financial access, like all wrapped up into one. And if you're feeling a little confused right now, I want you to go back to my previous videos and then come back up to date. But looking at this power and control wheel, it talks about how Venezuela holds, right? It literally holds one of the largest, and when I say largest, I mean largest proven oil reserves in the world. In the world. That alone puts it on the radar for like global power systems, right? I want y'all to let that sit. I really want y'all to let that sit, right? So that was pretty much, I just wanted to acknowledge like identifying the core resource, right, with Venezuela, which is the oil. And then we're kind of gonna move from the top down, move onward, right? We're gonna talk about financial controlling mechanisms. So when control over the resources can't be achieved directly, right? What do they do? The pressure shifts to what? The financial mechanism. If I can't control you, I'm gonna control something that to a degree controls you. Because what? You will be under control. Either you can be motivated or you can be what? Manipulated, but you gonna kind of do what I need you to do, right? So the pressure shifts to financial mechanisms. Sanctions restricted Venezuela's access to international banking systems, payment rails, trade and financing, right? That's like financial chokehold. They wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? That plays a factor in how they're able to make movements and to do things. And you can't deny that, right? When someone's controlling what? Your access to money. Your access, right? So once you restricted currency access, you don't just hit a government, you literally destabilize an entire economy. You completely destabilize their economy. And because of the weight of oil itself, right, it plays factors on other economies too, but not nearly as much as we'll see in other videos where I'm going to do some demonstrations pretty soon, right? But for the sake of this, we're going to talk about just the destabilization of what? That economy. So, currency is like infrastructure, right? So when you cut it off, everything downstream collapses, right? Because your currency is how you getting stuff done. It's how you getting stuff done. Okay? So we move from that financial system element to like the next phase, which is regulatory and diplomatic pressure, right? Because we right up in here, right? At the same time, you got regulatory and diplomatic pressures framed, like they pretty much framed them as not compliant, right? Unstable, which justify further exclusion. We've seen that even in pop culture, right? Somebody say, oh no, I don't want to partake in certain kind of activities. You're not going to control me X and Y and Z kind of ways, right? All of a sudden they become non-compliant, unstable, difficult to work with, problematic, right? So now other people are like, I don't want to do business with them. I don't want to interact with them. I don't want those kind of problems. It's all about framing. We know that there was one point in time, there was executive orders even that labeled them a certain kind of way as an elevated level of threat, right? Okay, so this is where governance matters, right? Because sanctions are not self-enforcing. They rely on authority. What? We always ask, under what authority, right? It relies on authority, recognition, compliance, and that's by other states and other institutions, right? You can't just do that just with one organization. It has to be multiple. So when one of the enforcing powers also controls like veto mechanisms in international bodies, what? And we got 5 countries that have that kind of power in, let's say, the UN, right? So keep that. So let's just go back, right? We're talking about when enforcing powers also control what? Veto mechanisms in international bodies. Enforcement becomes asystematic, right? That's the governance piece. That is the governance piece. You got to think about that. Right? If I have a vested interest in something you got going on, I'm saying I'm going to make you do what I said I want you to do. And then you're like, well, I don't know. I think I'm going to think about it. And you're like, okay, well, the person you would go to get support, I got power. I got weight over there. What? Because you got 5 places that can veto something. If I don't like how they setting up the stuff, I'm going to veto that. Because I got weight. I'm vested in this thing. Okay? Put that on pause. So apply like just the power and control wheel concept. So when you look at the power and control wheel in Venezuela, like I feel like you just see it. You should see it, right? Strategic resource control, which is the oil. You have financial exclusion, sanctions, banking systems, right? They were literally chokehold out of having access to banking systems, regulatory pressures, diplomatic isolation, narrative framing, so other people didn't want to work with them. You literally bogarted them out. There's no invasion that was required, right? But they still had control over what they did and how they moved, so they couldn't move without them, without discomfort, and without knowing, listen, I told you, take a toast or accept a failure. Well, or forfeit, I think is how they call it, right? So legally everywhere, what we looking at